What is going on, everybody? It's Craig Lyndall, the WaitingForNextYear.com podcast. The last time I spoke to you was a Monday night, but I told everybody it was a Tuesday night, and then I released the podcast Tuesday morning, and everybody was messaging me and tweeting me that I had podcasted from the future. And that just goes to show how fried out my brain was on Monday night that I thought it was Tuesday. I wasn't even drinking, I promise. No substances other than, not enough caffeine, an absence of caffeine, and some water aided that mistake. But here I am. I can confirm. I'm looking at my computer here. It is Wednesday evening. You might be listening to this Thursday morning or Wednesday night, but I'm recording it Wednesday evening after dinner. And so we'll timestamp it there so that I don't podcast from the future ever again. Today, what I want to talk about, because the Browns obviously have their second preseason game Thursday night against the Buffalo Bills, and so much of what this is, I mean, obviously it's a preseason game, but the story for both these teams is the quarterback, and in essence, not really having one. And so the big news today is all about quarterbacks. Most notably, Matt Flynn signed by the Jets. And of course, people remember Matt Flynn as being I think it was a Week 17 superstar when he played for the Packers in place of Aaron Rodgers ahead of the Packers going to the playoffs. And he played so well that he created instantaneous buzz for his services, including on Waiting for Next Year, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But SportsCenter tweeted out today on the news that the Jets had signed Matt Flynn, who obviously is replacing, or they need additional arm strength on the roster after Geno Smith got punched out by a teammate, and he's going to miss at least 4 weeks. Matt Flynn, SportsCenter tweeted out, has made more than $18 million in his career. That might make some sense. You say, all right, well, he had one really great game at the right time, and he signed a big contract. But if you look at the stats, it's astonishing. He's had 7 professional starts in his entire career. In those starts, Matt Flynn is 3-4, 3 wins, 4 losses. He has 2,451 total yards, 17 TDs, and 11 interceptions. $18 million in his entire career. And that just goes to show how well paid and overpaid quarterback is in the NFL. I'm going to pause for a second because my voice is all messed up. All right. So the quarterback, obviously, we know it's a premium position. We know teams overpay and pay a lot for that position. And even with all that said about Matt Flynn and the money that he made, and yes, he'd be another name down the list of the quarterback jersey that we've seen in Cleveland, and we'd laugh about it, but I still would have signed Matt Flynn way back when. I wrote as much on January 20th, 2012. 134 of you commented on it at the time, and I was thinking about it today, and I was thinking that I was kind of embarrassed that post exists on Waiting for Next Year and somebody could find that attached to my name. And then I got to think about it more. And just because Matt Flynn never grabbed a starter's job anywhere doesn't mean that it would have been a bad bet for the Browns to try anything. Because at the time, that was the draft where the Browns had 2 picks. This was before they used those 2 picks. And they couldn't trade for number 1, which became Andrew Luck, and they failed to trade for number 2, which turned out to be RG3. And so I wanted the Browns to. I hoped that the answer was Matt Flynn. I hoped that he was the guy that they wanted and the guy that they would go get so that they could keep those 2 draft picks. And of course, that didn't work out so well anyway for the Browns with those 2 draft picks. But so here's what I wrote. If the talent evaluators with the Browns, including Mike Holmgren and Tom Heckert, think Matt Flynn is that guy that would prove to be a cleaner, more predictable strategy for the Browns at quarterback, the Browns could throw a bunch of money at the guy and still have the draft picks that we as fans have waited so patiently for the Browns to be able to use this year. Plus, it kind of bugs me that the Browns could trade 2 first-round draft picks for the second best guy at his position. I was talking about RG3 coming out this year. Maybe that is flawed logic, but that's the way I was feeling at the time. It may be simplistic, but if Matt Flynn is thought to be the future of the Browns, then the Browns could end up with him and at least 2 of their first-round draft picks, as opposed to burning 2 for 1 and having to wonder if, when, and how fast Robert Griffin III can take this team to the next level. I prefer Matt Flynn. I don't know if Matt Flynn is the right guy or if the Browns are going to get him, but I sure hope so. Cleveland Browns fans know all about hope, and that's what I said. And I guess I still kind of stand by that. The NFL is still a quarterback-driven league. The Cleveland Browns still don't have a quarterback. And granted, if they had signed Matt Flynn back then, they still wouldn't have one, but it would have saved us maybe from the Brandon Weeden experience. Maybe they draft somebody different there. Maybe you never know. You know, you drop one thing different in history's path, and maybe the Browns don't end up drafting Johnny Manziel either. I don't know. I don't know how all those things work. Nobody does. But Matt Flynn certainly couldn't have been much of a worse experience than Brandon Weeden. So I guess I do kind of stand by it in the end. But the other news going around the NFL today, and this is something that I think Browns fans can definitely weigh in on, because we get it more than anybody else. And it's been a theory I've developed over time. I've been wrong about this in the past. And that's because Eli Manning hopes to become the NFL's highest paid quarterback. Now, he's come back and said, well, look, I didn't want to be the highest paid. But it sounds like he's going to get more than the $22 million per year that Aaron Rodgers gets paid. Now, obviously, NFL contracts are wacky and guaranteed money versus unguaranteed money. I mean, technically, Andy Dalton's a $100 million man, but the chances that he sees all $100 million aren't that good. It's all about the guaranteed money. But it doesn't matter because in the NFL, the quarterback has become kind of like a light switch. It's either on or it's off. It's a binary thing. Either you have the quarterback or you don't. And if you have him, when it's his turn, when he comes up in the rotation for a new contract, he's going to get paid. And he's going to get paid like one of the top 5 players in the league, because the cost of franchising a guy is just so phenomenal. And that's the situation with Eli Manning. And what I'm going to talk to you about is just how much better off even you are overpaying a guy like Eli Manning, because they give you a chance. You know, the money doesn't matter. We get so caught up in who gets paid the most. The cost of franchising Eli Manning is $25 million. You know, if they do the exclusive rights franchise tag, and that's $3 million higher than the richest QB deal. So all of a sudden, you know, it probably makes some sense to sign Eli Manning to a longer-term deal with average annual value higher than Aaron Rodgers, but, you know, with outs after the first 2 years or whatever. Because regardless of how much you like or don't like Eli Manning, and I'm sure there are a lot of detractors out there, he's led the league in interceptions before, the Giants know that if they put the rest of the team together, he is a quarterback who can win a Super Bowl. That's the same thing the Ravens found out with Joe Flacco. And I love to talk about, you know, is Joe Flacco elite? I love talking about that because I hate the Ravens. I don't like Joe Flacco. And I think it's funny to rub it in their faces that they overpay Joe Flacco. But guess what? I wish the Browns had the problem of overpaying the binary, is he a quarterback or is he not guy, $22 million a year. We would all be better off as Browns fans and followers if they had Joe Flacco or, you know, fill in the blank quarterback. That's the nature of the league. And so if you want to get caught up on the money, be my guest. Is it an inefficient way to build a team where overpaying a quarterback like Joe Flacco or Eli Manning costs you your ability to keep other players at other positions? Absolutely. But it is the A1 number one most important position on the entire football field, maybe in sports. Sorry, LeBron. LeBron James is the most powerful human being in sports, but it's not the most his position in particular isn't the most important. Football is the kind of sport where a position can be the most important in the entire sport. Because even a major league pitcher only goes once every 5 days, but you're better off. You're better off with that guy. And now the worst case scenario for the Giants is they give Eli Manning that kind of money and he falls off the face of the earth. But as a Browns fan on the outside looking in, you don't want to split hairs between Flacco and Drew Brees and Ben Roethlisberger, Matt Ryan, Matt Stafford, any of these guys who get north of $20 million a year or whatever it turns out to be. I mean, their cap numbers, and I don't even know what all their specific deals are. I just know that they're some of the richest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. And you can split hairs between the ages and the development and which guys you'd rather have. But the worst case scenario is Jay Cutler. And even Jay Cutler, he might find a way to play himself out of the hellhole seasons that he's had over the last couple of years with the Bears. And tell me this. Would you rather have 16, 17, 18 million a year tied up in Jay Cutler, or what the Browns have going with Josh McCown a year after they had Brian Hoyer plus Johnny Manziel and all the backups thereafter? I mean, it doesn't even seem like much of a choice to me. And so, in the same season where the Browns were chasing after Sam Bradford, who's playing on one leg, and I can't even remember the name of the guy right now, who ended up in St. Louis, but all these guys end up getting paid, and it doesn't matter what they get paid, because they are above the Mendoza line. They are above that line that states they deserve to get paid. And when it's their turn, they will, and they do. And the Browns would be lucky to have any one of those guys who's even slightly above that level that they should get paid. Because up until such time, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but up until that time, the Cleveland Browns are going to be trading the Brian Hoyer for the Josh McCown, for the rookie, whether it's Colt McCoy coming into his second year. The Browns will continue to play that game until they have that other guy. And even then, if they have the next Joe Flacco, who's nowhere near as good as Tom Brady, and they have to pay him Tom Brady-like money, you better not complain. I better not complain. I'm talking to myself too. Because that's just the way this league works. And splitting hairs over it doesn't make any sense. So the last thing I'm going to talk to you about today, ahead of the Cleveland Browns preseason game against Buffalo, is over the weekend I headed to a rock show in Youngstown, and I had a really, really great time. But it kind of reminded me of Brown season a little bit, and when I go to Browns games and I mix it up with all you people who also go to Browns games, and maybe not all of you, but I was there at the end of the night at a rock festival at a bar when people were at their absolute drunkest. I was there at the end of the night, and I wasn't drinking because I had to drive 80, 90 minutes back to my suburban Cleveland home from Youngstown. So I was not doing some drinking. It was late at night and I was tired. So adding alcohol to that would have just been the worst thing in the world. But there's nothing worse. There's almost nothing worse than being the sober guy at the end of the drunken party. And nothing made me feel like a teetotaler than watching all these people kind of fall all over themselves and have a good time, but then it devolved into fights, and a dude grabbed a girl and tossed her to the ground, and then he was mobbed by 4 or 5 other people who knew that girl. And then I see the cop cars show up, I see the flashing lights, and that's when I check out. That's when I've had enough, because I'm an older gentleman now. I'm over the age of 35, and so I can get myself out to these places from time to time, but I can't. I'm far beyond the hard partying dude I was in my 20s when I would have mixed it up in a mosh pit for example, or got myself into a situation where there was any kind of a fight going on. And I find that whole thing so volatile. And I know I've talked about this before with the Browns games too, but that it's one of the hardest things. Like I don't think that they should change tailgating culture per se, but I wish there was a way for me to kind of insulate myself from the real crazies, because there's nothing worse than being the odd man out or being so far under drunk compared to the over drunk. You know, that it's not so much about whether you should drink or not. It's about whether you should be hanging out with people who are at a completely different level than you of drunkenness or sobriety. And anymore, at my current age, I am way, way, way farther on the sober side, and that makes it really, really difficult to deal with the people who are way, way out there on the drunker side. And I found that, and it's just strange, man, because watching rock and roll music and everything else, they go hand in hand, but it's also the same exact thing that goes on with the Cleveland Browns. Thankfully, the preseason's not so much like that. But, oh, man, I know a lot of you love the tailgating culture. I know you like to eat like crazy and drink like crazy, and I don't even blame a lot of you, because the party was the only thing worth watching for the last 10-plus years anyway. 15 years, I guess, at this point. But someday, I hope that whole thing kind of flips the script a little bit. I don't see it happening really, but I kind of hope so. I hope by the time my kids are like 12, 13, that it's even that much more family friendly. Maybe that's selfish of me. Maybe I'm taking away part of the youth culture that I enjoyed when I was still in that age range. But I wonder. Is that just me getting older? Do the rest of you kind of agree with me on that? As we all get older, are you still in that age group where you want to party like crazy? Is the Browns game, the home games, are they still your insulated, isolated party zones where you go down and you drink all day and you get hammered like you don't the rest of the year? I wonder if the culture is changing for good and for real, around the Cleveland Browns. Because I know, or I think, the current leadership would love to see that migrate a little bit more to one of moderation from the kind of blackout drunkenness, the Monday morning YouTube videos of Browns fans dancing on top of porta potties and vans and trucks and doing all kinds of crazy things in the Muni lot. So I guess that's about all I got today. We're going to be watching the Browns on Thursday night. We should have some reaction from that as the Browns take on the Buffalo Bills. Hopefully they're able to find a way to deal with the Buffalo offense, because if the Browns defense can't stop the run and can't seem to slow down the Buffalo offense another week after, practicing against them all week, is probably not a good sign. So we'll have to see if Justin Gilbert's going to play, if Terrell Pryor's going to play, if any of these guys are going to play, and which of the Browns starters are going to be back. Is Joe Hayden going to be back in there? Joe Thomas? At some point, it'd be nice to get a look at the team or some approximation, some closer approximation of the team that we expect to open the season against the New York Jets. I just wonder if we're going to be able to see that at all in the preseason. So, Game 2 will be happening Thursday night. I'll be back to talk through the meaningful portions of that. I probably won't wait until the very bitter end to overanalyze every Thad Lewis pass, but nobody really wants to talk about that anyway. So, all right. So, your feedback assignment for this episode is to tell me the worst Browns quarterback you actually supported. I don't know which mine is. It's probably Colt McCoy. I was really in the tank for Colt McCoy. I thought I don't necessarily think he was going to be a superstar, but I think he got a raw deal from Pat Shurmur when they drafted Brandon Weeden. I thought Colt McCoy was easily the best quarterback on the roster when he lost the job to Brandon Weeden. So I'm going to say that the worst Browns quarterback I was in the tank for was Colt McCoy. I don't think I was ever really in the tank for Charlie Fry. I guess you can search the archives and see if that ever really occurred. But it's time for you to bare your soul. Take your medicine, admit your embarrassment, and tell me the worst Browns quarterback that you told everybody to be patient with because you had a feeling that they were going to be good. That's it for this time. Hit me on Twitter with that, at WFNY Craig. The Waiting for Next Year podcast Facebook page, the WFNY podcast Facebook page. Go like it. We're up to like 58, 59 people. I split it off. It's separate from the Waiting for Next Year Facebook page. And so it's a better home for just the podcast stuff. So do me a favor. Go over there. Share an episode. Be a friend. Be a good friend. Share an episode. Until next time, it's been the WaitingForNextYear.com podcast.
Waiting for next year.